I know it's cliche to say, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened, but I genuinely mean that when it comes to Los Ratones. To think a project like this was even attempted just goes to show how hungry the people behind it were for something real. A real competition with lots of nostalgia sprinkled in there, and also some sort of special connection with their fans and fans of League esports in general. Not only that, the fan base yearned for this too, I think we all did, right? So yeah, here's what we are going to do. I'll be guiding you through their highest highs in the LEC today, because frankly speaking, I don't want to sit here and be all sad and grumpy about them not making the playoffs. At the end of the day, it is what it is, we cannot change it unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, it stings, it truly does, yet Los Ratones competing in the LEC was a dream that felt so distant for so long in the first place. I wanna remind you, even with the insane viewership, even with the numbers they were pulling, it really felt like there would be no way in unless a big sponsor like Red Bull spent millions upon millions on a slot, which, if you ask me, felt even more impossible than it does right now, you know. So I'm glad they got their chance. I mean, come on, 5 wins and 6 losses in the LEC, that doesn't sound nearly as good until you realize they were literally a game away from finishing like what, top 3, top 4 in the LEC, that's just crazy. I mean, sure, numbers can be manipulated, they can seem like worse or better than they actually are. Still, nothing will change what we witnessed. Yes, it was a best of one, yes, it was a sketchy format, but come on now, LRB teams like G2, MKOI had a somewhat competitive game with KC, which is funny because they got steamrolled by KC Blue. Anyway, we will get there later in the video, okay? But for now, let's look at that much needed epic first win LR was able to pull off against the Heretics. Cause let me tell you, this comeback set up the whole miracle run attempt. This wasn't an insane comeback by any means, especially not if you are talking about LR, cause the game after this one, they came back from like 8-9k gold down. So even though against Heretics they weren't down by that much at 15 minutes, if we freeze frame at this top dive against baus, I mean things do look bleak, right? Almost 4k down, baus is surely gonna die, but nemesis strikes back. This play in the mid lane, the enemy Cassio has her ultimate, flash and ghost all available. As LR close in as a 3-man squad, Cassio pops her ghost and uses her ultimate, but Neme is so clean with that pixel perfect dodge. The rats already have the Braum stack on her, so they full commit here. Valia flashes to get that third stack, Neme follows up, stuns her and takes her down. While this may not be the flashiest play in the world, with LR having 2 dragons, getting any gold onto the Rise is massive because that buys them the team fighting power, time and honestly everything they need to turn this around. They don't stop there by the way, as 3 again they immediately move down to the bot lane utilizing the Rise ultimate, which leads to Crowny getting his 2nd kill of the game. The rats are still 3k gold down by this point, but that gap keeps on closing as they find another catch onto the enemy AD carry in the mid lane. That is 3 kills on Crowny's Caitlyn, which is a massive W of course. This is all good and all, yet obviously the main thing I want to show you is the breaking point of this game, the one that turned the momentum fully in LR's favor. It's Nemesis again, and believe me, we'll be talking a lot about him because he was the architect, the main character of the bounce back LR had. Just to give you some context, heading into this one, LR was 0-4, everyone was counting them out. People were saying there is just no shot they win even a single game, yet on their 5th game in the LEC, Nemesis does this. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, it's just beautifully played. Yeah, he falls down eventually, but he buys so much time, which lets Valia and Crowny pick up the kills. When all is said and done, with a very good scaling composition, LR is only behind like 900 gold. If you truly know this team, you just know that's pretty much them being ahead, right? The Baron fight shortly after, I don't even know why Shifter started it like this by the way, cause my man Valia just yoinks it. And now LR is sitting at 3 dragons plus a Baron. They win this whole fight as well, Valia does not let them steal it, and as usual, Neme is just a rockstar, Rise ulting in to kill the enemy AD carry. The amount of work he does in these team fights is beyond crazy, let me tell you that. So that was it, the first victory for Los Ratones in the LEC against Team Heretics. But their very next game against Shifters honestly was even crazier, people were still doubting them, and at first it seemed like they had a point. I know I told you I was going to focus on the good moments, the wins, the hype, the potential, but still, even at this comeback and win against shifters, they were 8k gold down. And while it's impressive that they found the comeback thanks to Nemesis rise again, from a big picture perspective, it really felt like LR was simply incapable of playing good enough early and mid games. I'm definitely not saying that wasn't good enough to be hyped about. I was hyped out of my mind, of course. Anyway, let me walk us through this fight real quick because it's way too good to skip. As I said, LR was 8k gold down. That's a very important reference point for this one. What I like the most here honestly is the composure LR showed. The 4-man crew defending the base waited for Nemesis to get to mid tower so that he has enough gold to finish his actualizer, which is a big spike for Rise. As Neme runs out of the base, baus finds the Gragas flashy combo right into the enemy ADK. Even though the Lucian doesn't go down immediately, he is zoned quite a bit by the Gragas ultimate from baus. And in a 4 vs 5 situation where shifters have the Nidalee top, as we know it's a bait pick, it wins you the lane but doesn't really bring anything to these team fights, Brownie gets to stay full HP up until he gets Y-ulted. In the meantime, Neme's Rise is cooking the shifters backline. It's absolute cinema, what can I say? To think both Neme and baus were 4k gold down against their respective lane opponents before this fight is mental, by the way. As if it's not crazy enough that LR aced shifters here, they only lost 2 in return. We take those, we definitely do. This game though was far from over. The Rats were still sitting at a 5k gold deficit. They had to win a couple more team fights to close it out, understandably. When shifters tried to do a Baron play with limited vision on LR's end, the Rats just pulled the trigger, and I really liked Neme ulting baus onto the backline here. It was such a good play, because it allowed LR to pick apart the shifters who were already taking so much damage from the Baron. It was very chaotic still. The whole fight turned into a very long and weird sequence in the end. The Talia base and then TP'd to the bot lane, Neme matched that, Talia ultied back into the Baron. It's a whole thing, you know. But thankfully, LR ended up on top and got their second win in the LEC right here, right now. Looking back, 2 wins back to back felt so incredible after that 0-4 start for LR. Yet it turns out we didn't even know what kind of miracles were to come from this point on. The SK win before eventually losing to Vitality was nice, yeah, still the G2 and MKOI wins were truly something else. Unlike the first 2 wins, the game against MKOI and G2 were much more methodical. Yeah, there were some wild moments of course, that comes with the same, but the success LR found in these felt replicable. I think that's important, right? You can't always do the scaling gimmick, especially against really good teams. No shade to shifters or heretics, yet they are not G2 or MKOI. Seeing LR hold their own in the early game against these teams, not fall behind a crazy amount of gold, being able to play a somewhat balanced early and mid game, that was all super nice to see. In the G2 game for instance, it all came down to the picks they were able to find with Nemesis Anivia and the objective control it brought to the table. The catch they found onto the enemy Aphelios was massive. If I recall correctly, Hansama had his flash back up in like a few seconds, so I'm assuming Nemesis timed that. I hope he did. Regardless, it was a much needed kill going to Crowny to keep him strong. Neme was once again the obvious playmaker. Alongside that though, the rest of the team was also on point when it came to following up on his setups. I mean, it's all connected, right? For example, Neme and Velia are able to get Scumon's flash here. A few minutes later, with a good vision setup, LR forced the Baron, knowing that the enemy jungler does not have his flash up. The enemy zones him quite hard here. It takes forever for him to get into the pit, and fortunately, Velia doesn't let him steal it. Let me tell you, Velia's smites more often than not were quite clutch this whole LEC journey. The biggest highlight the Rats had against G2 came in the shape of this final team fight. We saw baus, Kled ulting into a 5-man engage, Neme hitting the triple stun, Crowny just destroying them all with his Yunara. That was honestly incredible. Even if you're a Lost Ratones hater, you have to give him that. Just perfect execution of the team composition they had, you know. Beautiful League of Legends. What can I say? I truly loved watching this one, and the same goes for the MKOI game too. The Toonies went out there that day and perfectly understood how to play the team fights against MKOI, mainly by utilizing the numbers advantage they can create with the Poppy from baus. I cannot stress this enough. baus found such clutch Poppy ultimates multiple times, not just once or twice. Crucially, it was his Poppy ultimate that secured LR the third Drake, cause take a look at this. He literally wraps around the enemy Cassante and hits his ultimate right on the face of the Karma and the Azir. You know that hilarious messy gif people use for baus. This play fits that vibe so well, cause in my mind, he dribbles to the left, dodges that Cassante, and boom, third Drake for LR. I know I may be jumping around these games a bit too much, but there's just so much to cover and I wanna show you my favorite moments. I hope you can excuse me. Anyway, moving on, it was Bossy show again in the soul fight as well, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say he was the difference maker, at least when it comes to these Drake fights. I totally loved that for my boy Baus, cause believe me, he needed a break like this after being solo killed by almost every top laner. I would say the bounce back was much needed, thank god we got it. Even in the last fight of this game around the Baron, Baus did his tricks. I mean, with the Cloud Soul plus the LR bot lane being so ahead, it was child's play for them to win the fight. Like, look at this crazy amount of damage Crowny does to the Jarvan here, it's just bonkers. So yeah, LR did indeed beat some of the best teams in Europe. It was a best of one, a weird format. We can keep finding excuses and keep on copying about it, but sadly at the end of the day we had to say goodbye to them. I genuinely believe they could have done much better. The obvious thing they must have done was winning against KCB. I know KC and LR fans have this insane beef, so I hope I don't get harassed too much for this. Yet even the KC game, looking back at it, it wasn't impossible to win. If Nemesis had a big shockwave in that last fight, everything could have been different. It's just peak LR tale, isn't it? Get destroyed by KCB only to make it competitive with KC, it's absolute cinema as we all know and love from this team. It's gonna be such a shame that we won't be feeling the same energy for a while, or let's admit it, most likely ever. Bittersweet is what I call it. I hope this little video I made in honor of the greatest moments by the Rats in the LEC put a smile on your face. And if you wanna see more content just like this one, please do subscribe. If you made it this far, by the way, comment he cancelled it so that I know you're a real one. Take care, I'll catch you next time, bye bye.